Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is a video about creating a model for a Penitent Engine using of course the Penitent Engine kit, which is infamous for being one of the worst, well I say worst, one of the hardest kits to put together that Games Workshop has ever put out. I know personally I've never had as much trouble with any other kit as I have with this. That includes the Exorcist and Thunderfire Cannon, so there you go. But yeah, Penitent Engines are really fun, so a lot of people want to use them, and this video has been requested before, so I was like, okay, I'm building two more, so I might as well make a guide as I go along. So what you see are the tools you will probably want to use when making it, including ones that are a must and ones which you kind of have a choice on. So the first one, and most obvious, is you want a set of files. Reason being, because you want to be able to shave the mold lines off the model parts and that kind of thing, make the sockets and things a snug fit and that kind of thing, so it's very important. With you, some clippers, I've got Citadel ones here, will also help, so cutting off the bits of sprue and that kind of thing and then filing them down will really help. So basic model stuff there. Next thing you'll need is Superglue, of course. I recommend Loctite. It's a very strong one. I am also using this Army Painter one. It seems strong and sturdy so far. Haven't tested it out quite as much, but one of those two should be fine. Also, gel super glues are recommended. Excuse me. So yeah, that's to stick it together, obviously. Now, one of the things that some people can get away with, but I would really recommend with your Penitent Engines, is pinning. For which you will need some wire cutters, of course. The strength of the wire doesn't really matter so much. I'm just using generic like paperclip thickness wire here. It's cheap, it's easy to cut, and it's easy to shape. You could go for something really sturdy like piano wire, but honestly I don't think it's needed, and it would make it a little bit more awkward. And of course you need a hand drill for that, so here's a hand drill and some very small drill bits to go with it. And there you go, so more on that later. The other thing which everybody uses is green stuff, which you can see here, and for that I have two tools. One is for shaping the green stuff. This one is actually a stylus for a mobile phone with a very soft nib on the end. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's got a very soft nib. The reason I have this is basically it's really good for smoothing it down, like you can smooth down the green stuff when needed. Basically lets you use it like a finger, except you don't get the horrible fingerprint marks, that kind of thing. So very good for that purpose. So yeah, these are the tools you'll want. Green stuff, super glue, yes, obviously those. Pinning, again, you could get away with it, but I highly recommend it, because the thing is, once the Penitent Engine's made, it's very heavy. It's obviously made of metal. It's ungainly, and if one part breaks off, which is quite likely, especially if you haven't pinned it, it can collapse under its own weight very easily. So rather than having to rebuild it every few months, which takes forever anyway, yeah, it's better to pin it, basically. Okay, so I'll be right back with the first parts. Okay, so these are the first parts of the Penitent Engine I'm most interested in, which is the legs. This bottom part, which is basically an axle, almost like the hips of the model, essentially. And then we've got the main body parts, so you've got your character you want as the driver, and then you've got the backpack, and you've got the middle bit. Now, I've already stuck these together, as you can see, but this is how they go together, and again, I've just used super glue on all the areas where it makes contact. And you shouldn't be stingy with this glue at all, because again, this is the main body part, and it's quite heavy, as you can, well, you can't see, but yeah. So yeah, all I did was file the edges, of course, make it nice and smooth, make sure the contacts where it would be glued were quite flat, and glue it. Now, the good thing about filing is that it doesn't necessarily create a smooth surface until you do it a lot. It'll create little imperfections in the metal. That actually helps the stick of the glue be stronger, because it traps pockets of air, makes the seal stronger. So it's a good idea to do it anyway, just like one little scrape over if you want, just to before you glue it. The reason I got the legs is because it's important to dry fit to the base, so you can figure out the balance and things. So for instance, I'm going to use 2 of these legs. The main problem is this ankle part here, which is, if it would focus, it's a ball joint almost, which you can get away without drilling out of the entire model. That's actually the easiest one to get away without drilling. We'll see what happens, but basically you want these 2, and you can dry fit it with the hip part. I'll just put it together quickly. Trying to do it one-handed. Okay, so basically like this, you can hold it onto the base at the right kind of angle, and you can tilt the hip part so you know the kind of angle it's going to be at. Now that'll be important in a second, but basically you can do that, stay there, and then like dry fit that on top, and hopefully you can see how it needs to sit so the balance, the center of gravity of the model is well supported by the legs, because that will be important to stop the entire model falling over. So it's worth checking out now, and I filed all these down as well. Right, so after you've stuck this, you'll notice there are some gaps. Now it's up to you whether you put green stuff in there now, in these little gaps, or afterwards. I'm actually going to do it second. I wanted to make sure the glue was as sturdy as possible, and it seems to be holding together, which is good. This is the Army Painter glue, by the way. But I will be putting green stuff in the edges soon, just to give it a little more cohesion, but also it's going to give us something to drill into later, which we will need. So we'll leave that there for now, but basically that's that part complete, and that's the main body part, so that's okay. With this, you will want to drill a hole in the top, which, if this would actually focus, come on. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there is a hole in the top right there. Let's see what happens up here. Camera. Okay, yep. So there is a hole right in the top, right there. That's for the wire to go in, and it will basically line up with a hole I will drill in the socket part there, in that socket, and then I will pin it basically. It will also require some green stuff to really make the hole secure, but again, so yeah, I shaved this down, this joint, and made the hole. And that's why it's important to dry fit it first and check the balance, because then you know the angle the hole needs to be at, and then you can line it up with that one, and it should stand upright without any problems. So that's it for the first part. I will finish doing this and green stuffing it, etc., and we'll see if we can get going with the arms. Okay, so I have done the green stuff on the sides, which you can see there. So basically I've just filled in this area here, tried to smooth it off and that kind of thing, so it's a nice flat surface. And again there as well, because this will be covered up anyway, so you shouldn't be able to see, so long as it's covered from the top, which is fine. And again the same thing on that side. Basically just so when I add the shoulder parts on, they have a nice snug fit. One of the things I had to do was file down this part here, which is like this round ridgy bit, because the pieces just did not fit, so I had to basically make that nice and snug. So by filing that down it can actually fit on. So this is the shoulder piece I'm talking about. Yeah, and also a little bit there. So basically right there. So basically you've just got to keep dry fitting it and just seeing where it'll fit and what bits aren't, making it fit snug, and just file those down as best you can. As long as it's covered by other parts of the model, it really doesn't matter. Try to get it as snug as possible. The green stuff in here will help hold the model together, but also it's less likely to break apart because there's less gaps between them if they're dropped and that kind of thing. And also it gives it more of a surface to stick to when I stick the shoulder to. Now the other thing is these little pegs, for want of a better word. So these bits here, there's one there and there's one there, and the camera's really not focusing on here. Doesn't like this metal. Let me just put that down and see if it focuses a sec. Okay, so you can just about see there's one right there and there's one right there. And on this side too, there are basically two little rivets. You can just about see them there. You may have to file those down because whereas this does have sockets on the other side, as you can see, it's got two sockets to fit those pegs. Most of the time they don't actually line up. So what you actually need to do is file down the pegs as required, and sometimes you'll get one to fit and the other one, so it's better than nothing, but you know, that's why it's better to have a large surface. Now, you would lose some of the grip from not having both the pegs line up, but that's inevitable. We're going to fix that with our next step, which is basically we're going to drill a hole all the way through this socket here, right the way through, and it will be lined up to this, and the hole will come in about that green patch right there. Right there. So that green stuff will basically hold another pin, which will hold the whole thing together as well. Obviously this will be glued as well. And that will help hold the arm up as well. So the whole thing will be matched to the actual body of the model instead. Pardon me. The last thing to say about the arm socket is that for some bizarre reason, these little rivets here that are for decoration around the thing, for some reason they also do them on this side of the model, even though you never see them. As you can see, they're there. I've actually filed these down so they are flat. That means, again, I can make the model more snug. It's not actually sticking off the model, and it'll make a huge difference, because remember, this has to actually hold up the arms, which are one of the heaviest parts of the model. So it's very important that you have as much sticking power to the rest of the model as possible when applying this. So really it's function over form, but you wouldn't see those bits anyway, so honestly they're pointless. The last thing, of course, is that I did drill the hole into the bottom there, so it'll match up to the hip section, which is, I'll just move that out of the way, which is this one. So you've got the hip section, and of course it will now match up because I drilled that hole in before. As you can see, I've shoved some green stuff in there. It needs a bit of filing down still. I'm just waiting for it to dry. And I've put some wire in there, which again will need trimming to the right size, and they can go in, and then it's pinned, which is good. So yeah, basically when you've done the green stuff, make sure you leave it a good long time so it can dry. It's very important that the whole thing is nice and dry and stuff, and yeah, that's basically it. So that's it for that section. Next I'll be basically cutting off this bit, making sure it fits appropriately to the main body, so it'll fit in there fine. I'll be doing the rest of the filing on these pegs and stuff, and basically making sure the shoulder pieces attach. And then I will start on drilling holes and sorting out the arms to make sure they all work before we finally get onto the actual assembly. So chances are I'm actually going to attach the arms before I attach the rest of the model, because it'll be a bit easier to let them dry when they're glued before I attach it to the rest of the body. So basically you want to make the top half and you want to make the bottom half separate. So that's the plan, and that's basically it. So I'll be back soon with the rest of it. Okay guys, so what I've done next is basically I've finished filing off the edge of this down the interior part, and on the main body part I filed off the little nubs where appropriate, where it didn't fit quite right, so I filed them off. If it did fit, brilliant, but you know. After that, as you can see, there are holes now all the way through, which I've drilled through. This is for pinning the arms. So what I've done basically is make the holes there. After the hole was all the way through the center of the shoulder, I lined it up to here and drilled slightly into there to hold the pin a bit better, and on that side as well. And after that I have basically marked the point on the arms as I wanted them to be posed, so you can see there's a slight indent there, which is my next job, is to basically drill the hole deep enough to put the pin in, and then I'm going to be attaching the arms to the main torso at last. After that I'll be working on the legs, but the key thing at this point is to make sure you dry fit everything. Just try and hold it together as best you can, with the centre of gravity of course, and pose it how you wish, because the arms will be crucial in getting the pose you want. So basically make sure you kind of hold them in place, and then you know what angle they're going to be, and so you know what angle to drill the ball joint. So yeah, that's my next thing. You have to be very careful here. It's very easy to stab yourself while drilling these kind of things, so be careful. Here's the wire I'm going to be using for the arms, which is much thicker than usual. It's piano wire. This is 0.9mm of thickness, but it's super strong. If you do use piano wire, you're going to need some special piano wire cutters like these. These are Xeron. These are about £15, but they're very good at cutting super tough wire, so I'm going to be using those because the arms are quite heavy to hold up. So getting there now, so I'm going to finish drilling these, pin the ball joints, and basically put the entire arm together, and hopefully next time you see this it will have the arms attached and the torso complete. Okay, see you in a bit. Alright, so I've finished the upper torso part. Basically I just did what I said, so the arms are pinned all the way through the shoulder joints, stuck the shoulder joints on finally after they fit snugly. They're just held with super glue. Then the pin itself is into the ball joint of the arm at the angles I wanted, and as you can see I kind of green stuffed under the shoulder joint. It looks messy, but you know, it will hold, and you're not going to be able to see that when it's painted anyway, so who cares. But yeah, at the moment this is holding, this is dry, so that's all sorted. So basically I just have to move on to the bottom half, which is what I've been constructing today. Basically I narrowed off the pin on the top of the hip joint, as you can see there, so it fits snugly. And then I have basically attached the legs in the position I want, again with green stuff on the edges, which I'll tidy up later. Just wait for this to dry, and a lot of super glue on the joint. Made sure I got the angle I wanted on the legs, so it will attach to the base. Let me just try and line this up. So you can see it on the feet there. The feet aren't attached to anything yet. And then it will stand, hopefully. Ta-da! So all good. It means the centre of gravity is good, and I've tested it with the torso resting on top as well, so it's holding. So basically I need to wait for this to dry now, tidy it up a little bit, and then basically work on attaching the feet, getting it to on the actual base, and then putting the torso on in the right position, and then we're done. So nearly there. Okay guys, so here's the finished product, so to speak. This is the completed Penitent Engine. It's taken quite a lot of effort and time, as you've seen, but this is basically it finished. So basically what I did was attach the legs to the feet first. As I'd said earlier, it didn't really need pinning, so fingers crossed it'll hold, but I just put a lot of super glue in there, sat it in, made sure it was stood upright on its own. After a few hours of letting that dry, I stuck the feet to the base in the exact same way, and basically rested the torso on top of the legs at this point, just to hold it down more so, while it dried, but also just to ensure it all stood together okay. Didn't seem to be any problems. And then finally I glued the torso with the pinned ball joint, glued that together basically, made sure it's sat, and anywhere where the model is connecting it otherwise, like for instance here, that tiny joint there, tiny little bit there, and a tiny little bit just there. I just put a little dab of super glue on there as well, so it's a little bit sturdier than it would be otherwise. So I'm quite happy with the pose. It's kind of trying to swoop down with this arm. It's about to attack with that arm, and it's just finished attacking with that arm. So yeah, it's a nice different pose from the other one I've got. I've got one more of these to build, which is already underway, so fingers crossed. The last thing I need to do really is just clear this up a bit, but I'm still waiting for this torso to dry at the moment, but it seems to be okay. So if it's not, then I'll just bolster it up with some green stuff in the, if you can see the gap in there, I can fit some green stuff in there if need be, hold it together a bit stronger, but it should be okay, fingers crossed, and touch wood. So yeah, all that's left for this really is painting, which will be a while. Probably not going to get around to painting these at least till the start of April. Got tons of other things to be getting on with, but they're built. One little tip I should say, which I'm sure I've mentioned in the Penitent Engine video, basically if you do make your own Penitent Engines just like this, I would strongly recommend you get into the habit of, whenever a game finishes, put these back in your case, or rather, as soon as the model dies, put it away safely in the case before you do anything else. Because, as I say, I had one of these built, and one of the first things that happened to it was it just got knocked off the table and broke into several pieces, which was pretty bad, because as you've seen, there's a lot of effort that goes into building these monstrosities, but, you know, they're a really fun unit and worth it, really, I think. So, that's basically it. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it will be useful for you, otherwise I've just wasted my time, but you know, enjoy your Penitent Engines, and why not show me what you've made as well. I'd like to see any conversions or anything, or just successfully built ones for that matter. You will have my badge of honour on completing a Penitent Engine, because they're not easy, but as I say, it's a challenging build, but it's fun. And the end result is nice. I really do like the end result of the models. So basically you will see these again once they are painted up. So look out for those. And if you like this video, remember to click like. Feel free to comment, of course, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Ask any questions, any requests, that kind of thing. Feel free. And finally, subscribe for more videos like this and tactical videos and others in the near future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.